Our final category of worms actually takes us to the worms with which you are probably most familiar, the earthworms. So we're still bilateral, we still have 3 tissue layers. So what makes annelids or earthworms so special compared to flatworms and roundworms? Well, when we go back to our diagram of the body cavities, notice that we have a lot of open space inside our earthworm. This open body cavity is going to allow us room to do what? We're going to add all kinds of organs now and highly complex structures, at least in the life of a worm. So we have new characteristics we need to think about. We have a true coelom. This is a lined body cavity. Do you remember what it's lined with? Mesoderm, that middle body layer. We have a complete nervous system. Pretty cool. We have a closed circulatory system, meaning that we're actually going to have blood vessels, a heart, all of those familiar things. And this one at the top, this segmentation thing, this is very difficult for students to think about. But what we want to think about is how your body is divided out. And an earthworm is the first place we see this segmentation. That's why they're also known as segmented worms. And what we're really looking for is not divisions on the outside of the organism. Okay? We saw that in tapeworms. We saw what looked like pieces or segments. This is different. This is, if I cut you open, you have spaces, you have organs that are specific to functions, you have a lot of division of labor sorts of things. These are important because these annelids or earthworms are found absolutely everywhere, okay? So, of course, the ones that are found in the ocean we don't call earthworms. But when we look at these groups, earthworms are the ones you're most familiar with probably. Leeches you've probably also heard of. But polychaetes are actually a really cool one that are ocean bound. So this is basic earthworm anatomy 101. But look at all of this cool stuff we've added. So no longer the life of a flatworm and a roundworm with kind of basic structures and they do a lot of absorption and so on. No, we got a true mouth, we got a true anus, we got a complete digestive tract. Not only do we have a mouth and an anus, but we start to add other things. We add a stomach. We add something known as a gizzard that actually helps to break up the soils and particles that this earthworm is taking in and trying to get out all he can. We have something known as a crop that helps to store food. So we have digestive tract accessory organs. These are something we only see in more complex animals. We've got a brain. Now, it's not huge. It's an earthworm, okay? But we've got a brain and a nervous system. Notice that it has a ventral nerve cord. This is different than you. Its nerve cord is on its stomach. Why do you think that might be important? We got blood vessels everywhere. We got all kinds of things going on here. So very complex structures compared to what we've seen thus far. So with this body segmentation or repeated segments, what we're really looking for is higher levels of complexity of structures and an internal space in which to divide this out. So we really can look at an earthworm as having a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. Now, it's rough. It's not like your head, thorax, and abdomen. But we start to see these body structures or these body segments that have specific functions. We'll start to see this idea of segmentation more often. We see it first here in our earthworms, but we'll also see it in arthropods and mollusks. And we'll see it, of course, eventually in chordates or vertebrates. So the deal with the segmented worms. Lots of muscle groups now. They actually move much like your esophagus moves. They contract and relax both around and lengthwise so they can actually get moved through the soil. They still don't have any lungs. This is all right. They've got thin skin, but they do have to stay in a moist environment. So even your earthworms that we'd find outside if you started digging in the soil need to stay relatively moist so that they can absorb that oxygen through their skin. They are hermaphrodites, meaning that they're both male and female. We've talked about this before and its importance because they don't often see other individuals of their same species. They're solitary animals. There are about 17,000 named species now of segmented worms, many of which are these earthworms and ocean species. But, like I mentioned to you, these ocean species, or these polychaetes, are awesome. Now, when you look at this thing at the top, you probably wouldn't think about it as being a worm, but some folks refer to it as a tube worm. So you see it's kind of this tube structure with these feathery appendages coming out, filtering the water, just like when an earthworm eats soil, filters out all the particles that it needs. There are others. There's some free swimming ones that are pretty awesome, and a couple of sandworms and so on. But the whole idea is they do much more filtering and ingestion in the ocean. These sandworms will be digging around much like the terrestrial version. Leeches have been used historically, of course, for medicine. They tend to latch on and drink blood associated with the organism. They actually have some really cool properties. They actually just secrete an anesthetic. What does anesthesia do? It numbs, right? So they're actually secreting something that numbs you, so you may not even know that they've attached. That's fun. They also have an anticoagulant. What the heck is that? Well, anti is against, right, or not. So it actually keeps your blood from clotting. So it's a blood, let's say, it's a not blood clotter. Right? Okay? Keeps your blood flowing. So he can sit here and suck up to 10 times its own body weight. Wow, that's going to be a fat leech when he's done. Look at the size of this earthworm. Some of you might refer to these as night crawlers. Please don't get too upset that this thing's going to find you in the middle of the night on campus, okay? I promise. But he's a pretty awesome specimen of an earthworm.